The Fruit Girl and the Beggar. The morning sun peeked over the red hills of Bantu Hills, casting golden light on the thatched rooftops of the small village. The roosters crowed, goats bleated, and the air buzzed with the scent of dew, charcoal, and overripe mangoes. Amahey rose from the woven mat she shared with her 2 younger brothers. Her limbs ached from yesterday's work, but her spirit rose with the sun, just as it did every day. In the far corner of their mud hut, her mother coughed, weak, persistent, and full of pain. Amahey glanced at her worriedly, but her mother smiled faintly. "Go, child," she whispered. "Sell well today." Amahey nodded, grabbing her empty woven basket and walking out barefoot onto the dusty road. Her brothers, Sipo and Nadi, still slept, dreaming of full plates and running through sugarcane fields. Outside, she joined a line of women and girls heading to the market. Some carried tomatoes, others pineapples or bundles of cassava leaves. Amahey's load was lighter, just a few ripe mangoes, some guavas, and yams she'd dug up yesterday. The market was noisy and alive by the time she reached. Flies danced in the air, and people shouted prices across the makeshift stalls. As she spread a mat beneath her small fruit display, she noticed him again. The beggar. His hair was a wild mess, knotted with twigs and leaves. His beard hung in clumps, and his face was stained with dust. He wore layers of torn cloth and carried a sack that dragged on the ground. People hissed at him. A boy threw a stone. A woman shouted, "Go beg elsewhere, you cursed thing." But the man said nothing. He just stood, watching the market with tired eyes. Amahey's heart clenched. She had seen him for weeks now, always quiet, always alone. She picked a ripe guava and held it out as he approached her stall. "You're hungry," she said softly. He looked at her hand, then her face. "No one else sees me," he said. "I do." He took the guava gently, nodded once, and moved away to sit beneath a tree. The day passed slowly. Amahey made a few sales, earned just enough to buy a little maize meal and soap. As she packed up to return home, the beggar nodded to her again. It was the beginning of something quiet, something unseen by the busy world around them. The next morning, Amahey returned to the market with fewer fruits than usual. A storm had swept through the village during the night, shaking mangoes loose from trees and flooding the small garden she tended behind their hut. She walked slower that morning. Her feet sank into muddy paths. Her thoughts were heavy. Her mother had coughed blood. There was no money for the herbalist. The boys needed shoes. Hunger had become a familiar guest. Still, she smiled when she saw the beggar. He was seated at his usual spot under the baobab tree near the market's edge. His sack lay beside him, his hands resting on his knees. People continued to ignore him, or worse. One woman loudly muttered a curse as she walked past him. Amahey opened her basket. She picked out a slightly bruised mango and carried it over. "You're here early," she said. "You too," he replied, his eyes searching her face. "You didn't sell much yesterday." She laughed lightly, surprised. "You noticed? I always watch. You're honest. You don't shout like the others. You sell quietly." "That's because shouting won't make people richer," she said with a grin, handing him the mango. He didn't eat it right away. He stared at it, then looked back at her. "You shouldn't waste good fruit on me." "I waste nothing," she replied. "And you're not nothing." He looked away, blinking. "They call me Mzama." "The ghost?" she repeated, puzzled. He nodded. "They say I'm cursed. That I was once rich and lost everything through greed." Amahey shook her head. "I don't believe everything I hear. And I don't believe you're a ghost." "Then what do you believe I am?" She thought for a moment. "I believe you're someone with a story." He chuckled for the first time. It was low, rough, like stones shifting underwater. "You may be the first person who's said that to me in years." 3 days later, the wind blew strange and hot. The skies over Bantu Hills darkened unnaturally, and the smell of smoke stung the air. Amahey was still in the market when someone screamed, "Fire! Fire by the river huts!" Her heart dropped. That was near her home. She dropped her basket and ran, barefoot, fruit tumbling behind her. Her lungs burned as she darted past goats and stunned villagers. Smoke filled her nostrils before she even saw the flames licking at the rooftops of her neighbors' homes. Her hut was already engulfed. Her brothers stood outside coughing, their faces streaked with soot. Her mother lay unconscious on a mat, rescued just in time by old Mama Dan. Everything else, clothes, mats, pots, her precious saved coins, was gone. That night, they huddled in the shelter of a neighbor's hut. Amahey said nothing. She simply sat with her arms around her brothers, staring blankly ahead. The next morning at the market, the beggar was there. He approached silently and placed a piece of bread beside her. "I heard," he said. "I'm sorry. Amal didn't respond at first. Then she looked up, her face hollow but strong. "Life burns," she said. "But I am not ashes yet." After the fire, the beggar began visiting more often. He helped carry her basket. He fixed a rip in her tarp with an old thread and needle. Sometimes he sat in silence beside her. People whispered, "You're attracting bad spirits," Mama Tant warned. "That man is cursed. He'll bring ruin." Amal ignored them. One evening, her youngest brother, Naughty, approached the beggar while he was peeling a roasted yam. "Are you really a ghost?" the boy asked. The beggar laughed. "No. Then why are you dirty like a ghost?" The man smiled gently. "Because sometimes, little one, to see the truth in people, you must become invisible." Amal overheard and wondered what that meant. The more she listened to him, the more she felt a mystery humming beneath his tattered clothes. He spoke of distant lands, ancient poems, and foreign food she couldn't even pronounce. He was no ordinary beggar. One morning, a black car rolled into the market, an unusual sight in dusty Bantu hills. A tall man stepped out, dressed in a fine suit. He had polished shoes, slicked back hair, and a sharp jawline. He looked completely out of place. He walked directly to the beggar. "You fool," he spat. "Do you think playing peasant will fix your sins?" Amal, startled, stood up. The beggar didn't answer. "Father is sick," the man hissed. "Dying. And you're here rolling in filth?" The beggar's voice was low. "I'm not ready to return. You disgraced our name. You ran like a coward. Now he's asking for you." The man in the suit threw a paper envelope at his feet and stormed off. The beggar didn't pick it up. Amal watched in silence. "Who are you really?" she asked when they were alone. He turned to her, tired. "A man who once had everything. And lost it when I forgot to be human." That night, the beggar finally shared his story. His name was Tajand Lovu, son of a powerful businessman in the city of Lusaka. Educated in Europe. Groomed for wealth. He had it all, until one business deal went wrong. In trying to cover it up, he took the fall for his father and was disowned. "I had power. But no peace," he said. "So I came here. To feel the dust on my feet. To learn who I was without gold." Amal listened, her heart stirred. "Why me?" he smiled. "Because you gave without asking who I was. And that taught me more than all the books I ever read." Weeks later, Taj returned in clean but simple clothes. He had shaved, bathed, and even began teaching Sipo and Nadi how to read. One evening, he approached Amal with a proposal. "I want to help," he said. "I can build you a proper store. A roof that doesn't leak. Medicine for your mother. Education for your brothers." She stood up angrily. "I'm not your charity case. You're not. You're a partner. You work harder than anyone I know. Let me invest." She shook her head. "No. I'd rather sell in the sun than take handouts in the shade." He bowed his head, respecting her choice. "I understand," he said. "But if you ever change your mind, the door is open." Amal had always worn her pride like a crown, even if it was stitched together by struggle. When Taj offered help before, she refused. Not because she didn't need it, but because accepting it would feel like surrendering everything her mother taught her: dignity, self-worth, and hard work. But life didn't care about pride. Her mother began coughing blood again. The village herbalist Serbs did little. The town clinic was too far and too expensive. One night, her mother fainted. Amal held her in her arms, screaming for help. None came. Days later, as she counted her last coins, she discovered her fruit basket had been robbed, emptied in the night. A jealous vendor, perhaps. The neighbor said nothing, but Amal saw the guilt in her eyes. Her brothers came home from school barefoot. They had been mocked, beaten with sticks by a teacher who hated poor children who wore torn shirts. Nadi cried himself to sleep. Amal's hands were tied. That night, for the first time in years, she wept like a child. "God," she whispered under the stars, "I have nothing left to give." The next morning, everything changed. At her stall was a sack, filled with medicine, rice, cooking oil, 2 pairs of shoes, soap, and a wrapped bundle of money, just enough to stabilize her family. No note. No name. But Amal knew. Across the market, Taj stood by a sugarcane seller, pretending to examine stalks. He glanced toward her but didn't approach. He didn't expect thanks. He just wanted her to be okay. Amal didn't say a word. She didn't confront him. She simply held the medicine to her chest. And cried again. Not from weakness, but from the feeling of being seen. 1 year passed. The market now looked different, not in its chaos, but in its heart. Amal had built her own shop with her earnings, finally allowing herself to accept a small business loan, after months of internal battle and Taj's quiet encouragement. She had repaid every coin. The shop was small, made of smooth red clay, with shelves neatly stacked. She painted it herself with warm earth tones and hung a wooden sign carved by Sipo. A single mango hung on the sign, symbolic of where it all began. She named it, Amal's Basket. Villagers who once whispered about her now came to buy her famous guavas, sweet mangoes, and homemade mango jam. She hired 2 girls from the village, orphans with no one to help them. She taught them with patience, as Taj had taught her. And Taj? He still came daily. Not as a beggar now, but as a friend. He bought a mango every morning and sat outside the shop sipping tea. Sometimes he helped restock the shelf, sometimes he read to Nadi under the baobab tree. People had stopped calling him Zama. They now greeted him with respect. Mr. Taj, they said, though he never demanded it. He had become part of the fabric of their village, not by money, but by presence. One evening, he asked her softly, "Do you ever wish for more?" She paused. "I used to. But now. I just wish it stays like this." He smiled. Even peace can be a revolution. One quiet evening, Taj handed Amal a small box. Inside was a carved wooden necklace, shaped like a mango. "For you," he said. "Because it all started with one fruit." She stared at it for a long time. "I never said thank you," she whispered. "You didn't have to," he replied. "You saved me. Not with money. With kindness." She looked at him, her heart full. "Will you go back to the city? Only if you come with me." She laughed. "What would I do in a city of tall buildings?" "Teach them how to smile," he said. And for the first time, Amal did not refuse.